Hi, I'm Romi.
And I'm Nicole.
We are two businesswomen, two colleagues, two friends who had an idea and decided to do something with it. Over the past 2 years, we've built the Daily Drip, a media platform and community for the modern South Florida businesswoman.
From Palm Beach to South Beach, we've built an audience of thousands of local business owners, CEOs, founders, executives, and more. And we did it 100% organically.
Whether it's through our blog, weekly newsletter, social media, events, or even this podcast, our mission is to offer a daily drop of inspiration as you pursue your dreams.
People ask us all the time how we did it and why we did it. Join us as we bring you along our journey and the journeys of so many other incredible local businesswomen here on Her Pursuit. Okay, so we're here for our first podcast episode, and I'm sitting with Nicole Cumberbatch, Lauren Klein, Bianka Krausch, my partner in crime. Who are you?
Who am I again?
Romi Wallach, and my name is Nicole Mastrangelo, and we're here from the Daily Drip Thought Leadership Program, here to talk about what this journey of starting a business is like. It's loaded. But, Romi and I get asked all the time, why did we do this? How did we do this? And, in the beginning, it was really scary. But we had some tools. We had some things in our toolbox that helped us get the first steps set, right? And wheels in motion. So we're going to have an episode today where we're going to talk all about what those steps were. I'm here with 3 businesswomen. We all started at some point, right? You guys all started. So, Nicole, what were some of those tools that were in your toolbox to help you start your business?
It's interesting because it didn't start as a business, I don't know if all of you know, but it didn't start as a business. It really started as I was struggling in motherhood, and I saw a problem. And the problem was I thought we were not having conversations about how hard motherhood was. So I just started with a podcast almost 4 years ago. And from there, it steamrolled into a business. So the reason why I say it's important is because you never know where life is going to take you. It's just like a hobby. It was an outlet and thing. And then over time, I realized, wait a minute, I want to take these conversations and further dive into it, and more people need to hear this and not just limit it to a podcast. So some of the tools that started was just me grinding with it and starting the podcast, and then from there saying, okay, well, what's next? Well, let's do a workshop. So it's just, I guess, without a specific tool other than having the podcast studio, was more of like seeing a problem and then finding the solution to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Kind of like us, though. I feel like the Daily Drip wasn't like this, like, let's start a business and let's do this. It was like, it kind of happened to us.
It really did. That's such a good way to put it.
It kind of chose us through an evolution of 2 women who were actually doing other businesses and recognizing a need and a gap and supporting each other. Like, to me, I always come back to that. It's always down to, like, at the core of what we were trying to do to help each other grow and develop our businesses. And this has become an extension of that.
Yeah, I think when I think about when we got started, it's so funny because, true, it happened to us. The Daily Drip happened to Romi and I, but we kind of, I think, did it in a reverse way. Like, we knew everything we didn't want it to be. We knew what we didn't want to build. And kind of figuring that out each and every step of the way helped us find what we did want to build. We got closer and closer to where we wanted to be. And yeah, like when I think about 2 years ago and what our business plan looked like and what we thought it would be, it looks nothing like that today. And I'm so grateful. I'm so glad like it didn't turn out, because it's so much better than what we envisioned. And it's really because I think we gave it the grace and time to evolve. We weren't desperate to launch anything. We weren't desperate to monetize anything. There wasn't this enormous pressure. So to your point, Nicole, we kind of started as a hobby, as a passion project in community building, and it was supposed to help our other businesses. And then by watching what people were gravitating to and listening to what they were struggling with, we were able to build what today the Thought Leadership Program is, build a solution for all those things. But when I think about it, I remember when I met Romi, and I was just in such a place where I was so unfulfilled. Like, I was just so unhappy. And, some of the skills and tools in my toolbox were all these years of business development experience in various industries, various companies, leading different sales teams. And so I knew how to do that, but I was doing it for all the wrong reasons or with all the wrong companies. And it was just like, I was just so ready to do it in a way that was fulfilling for me. I feel like sometimes like that motivation, that fire was the best tool I had in my toolbox.
You were my first stock.
My first stalk.
You were the first stock I ever had. I went right after her.
I think there's something working in corporate, and I don't know how many of you have worked in corporate here.
I'm in it.
You're in it. You're in it. Corporate.
Yeah.
Bianka shook her head no, so I'm interested to hear your story with it, because that really deals with those soft skills of like organizing, knowing how to email correspondence, like all of those are soft skills that you look back and I'm like, oh, I know how to manage a team, so managing things that help. So Bianka, I'm interested to hear like how that affected you.
Like not having been in corporate.
And what were your skills to start?
Yeah, I wonder that myself sometimes. Well, I mean, I worked at some point. I worked for a television station, but that lasted barely a year, and so that was my post college experience. But that's also when I realized I wouldn't really say I involved myself too much into that. I knew right away I didn't like it, and then moved and then started my own company. But I think, to your point, I think that no business that's successful today is still in its original pattern. I think that your toolkit is the fact that you're flexible. That you're not stuck. I think
flexibility.
I think the ones that fail are stuck in what they think it should be instead of what does everybody else want to receive. And I think that is the big.
Yeah. And
You're
I was going
very
to say, or
right.
conversely, chasing, like going too wide in trying to accommodate and get off course. Like, even though we've evolved, every time Nicole and I do we do a lock-in and we get together and we got the whiteboard and the coffee and all the things, we always really start those meetings with, why did we start this? Like, what is at the core of why we began this? Because whatever we do with the Daily Drip, it always goes back to why this all started and what's most important to us. That we keep the same.
And that's a good point, because I think in entrepreneurship, all of we can attest to, we start losing our North Star, our center, because we're hearing you're supposed to do this in business, you're supposed to do this, whatever that is, the supposed to's, the shouldas, the couldas. So we start going this way and you have to come back. I love that you do that. I need to.
Yeah, we have a lock-in.
To say where's my North Star? Making sure I'm sticking clear. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, we have a lock-in regularly. And I think if I had to say what was a good tool in our toolbox was we were very good about pausing. We were very good about pausing, coming together and saying, okay, wait, why did we start this? Because it's very easy for things to move fast, like the velocity to pick up. And then, some things look like great opportunities, but they're like Trojan horses. They're shiny objects that distract you off course. And so we've had many times where we've fallen victim to wrapping ourselves up too much in something that really didn't serve us. And so we try to have a good habit. We have good habits of pausing and coming together and regrouping. And I think that has really served us in delivering an evolving product that meets needs and gets better and better and better. And I think, I give us a lot of credit for that, because I think pulling away and stopping is very hard to do. There's like a FOMO that
you're
goes
in
with
the middle
it.
of your
Well,
rebrand.
actually, I've opened and closed an office in Los Angeles. It's been 4 years traveling back and forth every week, and closing that. I think my ego got in the way a little bit, like having to shut down, realizing I didn't really want to fly out there every week. And then Atlanta was an emerging market, so we actually just switched to there. But it's scary. And I think it's really scary to say, you know what, we've spent 3 years on this. Let's do something different.
Right.
Because also then other people don't really like change either. So I feel like the feedback that you get from your community isn't always like, oh yeah,
And to pause
let's change.
Going back to the soft skills of working in corporate, I saw a lot of what the business owners I supported didn't do correctly. And I'm like, oh, they could probably be so much further if they just did X, Y, Z, if they just paused, if they just maybe invested in outsourcing. And I have to remind myself as I'm growing, like, weren't you in the background saying, guys, X, Y, Z? So I have to pause, reflect, reset, all of the things, but we don't talk about that enough because we just want to go, go, go. So I love that you guys do that.
I think you also have to identify the fine line between between quitting and recognizing that it's okay to step away from something because it's just not working. Like, that doesn't mean it's necessarily like quitting on it, but it's time to kind of shift, right? Instead of just keep going aggressively towards something that your ego is standing in the way of, right? Instead of getting away from it. And I think a lot of what we witnessed with other organizations that weren't necessarily like what we were building, but where they were going amiss and awry was trying to do too many different things, straying too far, meeting the needs of all sorts of people and getting away from who the person was they started this for. You know, who are they looking to serve?
And Lauren, I'm interested in your aspect of, since you're new of starting branching out, not even a year, how has that been for you? Because you're killing it.
She's everywhere.
killing it, right?
She has her team. Like, I think that you've just recognized from the outside in of like hiring the team, outsource, like all the things. So where did that come from?
So I literally spent years before I launched Flourish Law Group doing a number of things. One, working on how it would feel once I did it. So literally working with a therapist every week of why I wanted to start a law firm, why I was going to be able to start a law firm, working through all the different things that were popping up, all the lies in my head. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you need more experience. I'm like, okay, at this point I have way more experience than I ever needed to start a law firm. And working through the mindset and actually just sitting down and embodying, okay, how's it going to feel when I start this firm? How do I want to feel? What do I want to accomplish? Who do I want to be helping? What will that experience feel like for me? Just doing that before I actually started the firm. Literally, when I started, people were like, aren't you nervous? You have 2 little kids. You're the primary breadwinner. Your husband's in law enforcement. He doesn't make as much as you do. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm really not nervous at all because I already worked through it all. Like, I have moments where I feel nervous, of course, where I'm like, oh my God, where are we going with this? What's happening? How much should we spend on marketing or, you know, whatever it may be? But that helped so much. And that was years. That was like probably a 3-year process of working through all of that before I ever did anything with the law firm.
And what was your motivator? Like, why did you want to go off on your own?
I always figured that I probably would start my own law firm. I knew I wanted to have my own business, and I already started dabbling in real estate, and I have a coaching program for law students, but I always figured I probably would start a law firm. But it's going back to what you said, Nicole, seeing what everyone else is doing. I'm like, this is not the way I want to practice law. This is not the way that I want to run a business or be involved in a business. And seeing all the gaps in the market and all the ways I'm like, I could do this better. Honestly, I could. And so for me, that was one of the biggest motivators, and also just time freedom. You know, right now we're in like the major startup phase, so there isn't a ton of time freedom, but we're building the company, so there will be time freedom.
And I think you still have, it's still your company. So you can take the time if you need to say, wait, this is still mine. So I am still in control. And I loved how you said, because I think so many people are in this thing of like becoming a business owner. They think it's just going to like pop up. So the fact that you took years to take that step, because people could look at you and be like, oh, you started, okay, she left. And you're like, no, honey, this took time. And we don't talk about that enough of like the time and effort to put in.
And you know what? You just touched on something. And I think if I had to tell anyone, like, what are the tools in your toolbox or what are the approaches you should have, it's like, you know, Marcus Lemonis is like, I'm a fangirl of his, and I love his shows, and I just love him in general. But he always talks about people, product, process. Secret ingredients to business. And when you're starting, you have an idea. So you kind of have the product, as unrefined as it might be, right? But really, when you're starting, it's less about the product and it's more about people and process, right? And I really think those were the tools Romi and I had in our toolbox. We both, Romi even better than me, were good connectors. We were really good at talking to people, figuring out what makes them tick, identifying if they were good fits for us or if we were a good fit for them. Could we solve their problem? You know, we were really about people. And for me, I lived in a world and had a whole background of process. So I knew how to build good systems, good habits. You know what I mean? And so then our product evolved. We didn't have analysis paralysis. We didn't have a fear to launch, because we were so perfection oriented. In fact, right now, this podcast right now, it's our first episode. We're just here. Like, we're here with a smile. Like, I'm not a podcaster. It might not be perfect, but by doing, you perfect it. So the product was the least of our concerns. We just knew what we wanted. We knew what kind of community we wanted to create and what we wanted to talk about. We didn't know we'd have a membership. We didn't know we'd have the media platform we have. We didn't know all the sponsorship packages that we'd have and what would even be interesting to sponsors. Like, we learned it all on the fly as we were going. So we didn't sweat the product development.
We learn it in the middle of calls.
We literally will have a
happens
call
in the middle of calls.
and we'll say, oh my God, we need to update the sponsorship kit
Yep.
again. We should have that in ours.
And you've been already, and you're like, oh, but we have it. And you're like, shit, we don't.
For us, the product's ever evolving. It's
Yeah.
okay. We could say shit on this podcast.
It wouldn't be us if you don't. It certainly wouldn't be me.
My point, especially because I have
Yes.
to go out of here, and that's the realness of this, right? Busy, but we had talked about like the beauty of self-awareness, which I think goes to the work. I think in order to move forward in anything in life, you want to get married, new relationship, new business, but whatever it is, you have to do the work on yourself. I think one of my strong suits is recognizing that and very self-aware of like, I don't know, having this special intuition, inkling of like, okay, let me move this way, this person, I don't know, their synergy, like having that. But that's been work that I've done on myself. You and I have talked about that. And then there was another thing you said, these are why these come, because I'm like, you hit the nail on the head with it. But yeah, I think you have to, I guess one of the biggest things, just the self-awareness. It's a big, big toolbox.
Self-awareness is the best tool you can have for life. If you couldn't have the ability to watch yourself react to something and talk to yourself through it, I mean, I think that could just help you in everything. But, you know, it's interesting, Lauren, because in my consulting side of my business, I've worked with a lot of lawyers, right, that have gone off and started their own firm, and they certainly haven't done it as intentionally or as prepared as you have. And you know what's one of the biggest things that comes up with them? And with a lot of business owners is like, they don't, a lot of people don't realize, like, if you're in business, you're in sales. You are in sales. You are in the people business. And you have to be okay with it. Like, I don't care how long you've been practicing estate law. You want to have your own firm, you better be about people. You better have your salesman hat on. And a lot of business owners are just so passionate about the product. And I think, that's the big takeaway in the discussion here. The product is the least of it all because business is about people. It's about relationships with vendors, relationships with clients, relationships with team. And so, like, if you're not comfortable interacting with new people, if you're not comfortable networking, if you're not comfortable relationship building, if you're not comfortable putting out what you have to offer, you better go work for the man because this isn't for you. This life is not worth,
Right.
This life's not for you, or you need to learn that's the biggest tool you need to build in your toolbox.
Entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that's okay. And if you just need to know that before you go in, this is something that works for you or not.
And I think you're right. It's relationship building. I did not realize how much of like what I do is like the emails. Listen, we have events. We do events. Motherhood, businesswomen. I still have to do emails. I can do all the social media posts. I can do all of the Facebook posts, but I still have to do those emails. Hey, did you forget? Why? Because the algorithm might not have shown them the post, the thing. So we still have to, did I do all the invites? Did I do all the personal one-on-ones? Am I making sure I'm making the rounds? And I quickly realized that. And I was like, oh, very instinctual. I was like, this is not just me having an event and saying all the moms will come. It's, oh shit, I have to get out there
And
to
actually-
the ground and network and say, hey, I'm putting this event, and it's going to be a continuous process because I still have people that know I have a summit. Every year they're like, when is it again? I'm going, right? And it's the constant like, let me send. It's people business, definitely people business more than anything.
And that's what Romi's biggest skill set is she's just like a super connector and attractor. People just love her, and she has this weird. She's that person that will sit in a public space and someone next to her is going to tell them like their deepest, darkest secrets, their life story. They're ready to buy whatever she's got. It doesn't matter. Like Romi could sell ice to Eskimos. But what she needed was someone like me because I was all systems and processes, right? So Romi knew how to connect with people so good. But like it was what happens after
no
that,
system
right?
and no process.
So like sales processes and workflows and like those kinds of fundamentals, those can also be learned, but they're important. They're important to have those kinds of skill sets and understanding so that you can take all those relationships and convert them into something.
So I think all of those things are more learnable than the people aspect. I think the people aspect is a lot harder to learn. And I'm fascinated that, as we talk about corporate, this has been my first experience working in a proper corporate job. And I think my takeaway at this point has always been everyone should do it for at least a year, because I've learned things and a discipline and an appreciation for the systems and processes, which I did not have. And I think for me to be able to adopt those, the accountability, that it was not for myself, like someone was looking every week to see what I was doing, how I was moving things through a sales process, what activities was I doing. I didn't have the discipline in all of my previous endeavors to stick to that. And that just wasn't my nature. And even now, it's still a bit of a struggle for me. I just want to be free. Like, let me run and do, and then let somebody else just do all the other stuff. So it's wildly impressive to me that you were able to have that already and not have to go through that experience.
But it didn't start out all that bad. There were so many, if I look back now, there's so many times I could have saved myself a lot of headache if I had just done maybe research things or like looked at the market or see what's sticky. So mine is all trial and error, lots of error, lots of trial. And it works out at the end, but.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, in the errors, how did you push through them? Because a lot of business owners and a lot of people who are starting out, those errors, like they are just such big blows to them, and it's the thing that can make them quit.
Paralyzes them.
They're crippling. It really paralyzing, crippling. They are. So like, I think the most amazing thing about you is that error after error, you just kept going.
I'm an eternal optimist. That's what my mom says, and she works for my company. She says that every time something happens, I do deal with, there's like a month of like, and then literally snap out of it. Okay, what's next? But I think that's something that's just, I don't think that's something I learned. I think I was just born that way. I'm somebody like, it's always helpful.
Yeah.
Because that's just the lifestyle.
And you knew what you were working towards.
Yeah, I recognized the second time I had to close an office, March 2020 in Atlanta, because COVID, and we're just like, okay, what's going on now? I think that was when I was like, okay, let's really sit down and figure out where we see ourselves in the next 5 years. And I've never done that before. So the company's already 15 years old when I asked myself, where do I want to go next?
Wow.
Yeah.
And it led to so many amazing paths, whether it's WIFT, whether it's Film Florida. I think all these things came post that conversation that I had in my own head.
Yeah. So talk about those. Like, what were the things that came after you had that moment of pause?
The moment of pause. Well, also, I think that COVID shifted, obviously, a lot of mindset. Like, how do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to spend it with? How do I want to show up for my children? Because we did have that pause for like 4 months where literally, I think it was 2 to 3 months where there were no permits. Like, there was hardly any work unless somebody had an in-house studio. We really weren't going to work. And I think during that time, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to show up for others? How do I see this company, in what direction are we going to go? And then we looked at all the organizations around us that were part of my industry. We joined, we became chairs, whether official or unofficial. We started hosting events for our industry. And then really just kind of, now I'm like, I think I have 2 events I host every month. Like, it got really big, really fast. And what's so funny with that too is all the business came with it. Like, so not expansion got me more business. It was actually staying put and focusing on my local community that half the time didn't even know I was there.
Oh my God.
But
You know what I mean? So
it seems like at your core, though, you still had like a clear vision of like your industry and what you wanted to be doing. It was just a matter of how that looked, right? Like versus a business owner that's like, I tried doing this, it didn't work, close up shop and try something entirely different.
It was in the same vertical.
Yeah,
So we tried like an event division, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be up at 9:00 at night every night checking in on people or model table where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I want to get text messages after having my third baby. Like, I'd like to just go to sleep. So so we tried a lot of stick, but like now what we've, and I think that's what at the beginning conversation is, we think we check if it's sticky. If it's not sticky, abort and just move on. Like
abort and be okay with that. Accept that that's the process. That is business ownership. Even my family's business, we have a pest control company that my grandfather started. It's been in our family going on almost 4 decades. And even how that business has evolved and things that once worked that don't work anymore. And just even when we look at the Daily Drip and how we thought it was going to start and what it's evolved into, that you just kind of have to accept that going into it, that you're in an ever going product development process and systems and process development process. And you're constantly problem solving and you're constantly pivoting. And so, yeah, who said that flexibility was the most important thing?
You did.
You did, Bianca. And you're right. Flexibility is important, and you can't be scared of that. You can't be scared of change. You have to be ready for it. You have to know it's coming, and that your great idea that you wrote down in black and white and makes perfect sense on paper, you're going to go and take it into the world, and you're going to say, oh, I never thought of that. Or, oh, I didn't expect them to react this way. I didn't realize that was their biggest concern, or that was the real problem that they have underneath all the things, and then you're going to go back to the drawing board and you're going to draw again, and you're going to make a new plan, and then you're going to go take that out into the world, and then you're going to see, oh, if I had this, it would be that much better. And it's forever.
Yeah.
It never goes away.
Then you're not going to notice. You're not going to notice what you need to change, what needs to be different. Especially in law, I feel like everyone kind of does something one way. And I'm like, but why are we doing it that way? Maybe we could do it a different way. Maybe we could partner with other people and approach people in a different manner, like go to moms groups, like working with Nicole and talk to moms, like this is what we do, rather than come to my office. It's going to be really boring and it's going to be really like, we're going to be in a suit. Like that's just not how people want to do business anymore. Even conversations like this, just raw, this is what everyone wants now.
Yeah, raw.
This is what hits. Just for whatever reason. I don't know why, but that's what works.
I come up against a lot of like resistance in the space that I'm in, doing business development in a company that has over 500 people and about 50 of which do what I do. And I feel like they haven't really figured out what to do with me because my approach to how I do these things is very different. I don't think there's just one way to do things, and to your point, especially when it comes to collaboration, like what I think is really cool is seeing how people should be coming together in ways that they don't even understand. And then all of a sudden they have this conversation, all of a sudden like the sparks and
like
goes
magic.
off. And I think with us, almost with each new contributor, each new thought leader sparks something different in us. And all of a sudden it's like you've been an avatar for us in terms of, oh my God, she's the perfect example of why we should do X, Y, Z. Every time we meet somebody new, every time someone comes on and trusts us to help them in their space, it is an opportunity for us to kind of shift a little bit, but still stay true to our core. But
It's not shift, it's level up.
okay,
It's like
sorry.
each new
She's the better word. And optimize. I've learned how to
optimize
use
and
the
level
Nicole
up. Those are my lingos. But
vocabulary.
no, it really is such a level up because it's with
They challenge us.
Yeah, you guys
true.
really do, because it for us, where Romi and I are completely aligned and on the same page, and the value we share the most is integrity in our work and in our product. We're not afraid to admit and throw something out there that we know is not perfect forever, but it's perfect for now, because we can't wait to see how people interact with it so that we can go take it back to the lab and perfect it or level it up. And so with each new thought leader, we learn from you guys, and we learn about your challenges and your different industries and maybe your mindset challenges and what's getting in the way. I remember when we first looked at the Daily Drip as advertising, right? We're going to have this media platform and people are going to come to us because they're going to want the visibility. Fast forward 2 years, when we do our surveys, nobody's here for that. Literally nobody is here for that. That's the cherry on top. Everybody's here for each other. They're here for the community. They're here to learn. They're here for the support. And the visibility is like a bonus. So it made us realize, oh, we have a totally wrong business model. We need to change this. And I think also what has been really interesting to me is we have like a whole handful of thought leaders, contributors. The name has even changed, guys. Like when I tell you it's an evolution, it's an evolution. But we've had a whole handful that have been here since the very beginning, when this was literally our hobby. This was not a LLC. This was not incorporated. We didn't have a website. We didn't have anything, right? And these people have no problem with the fact that we've edited the product, removed things that didn't work, added new things to make it better. It's almost like they're sitting back there with popcorn, waiting to see, like, what are we going to do next? But with each 6 months or quarter or year even, they have seen leaps. and they're just here along for the ride. So like, I can't imagine if we were hung up on perfection, how much that would have hurt us, because they're still with us. They're still like championing what we're doing, referring people to us, sponsors, vendors, thought leaders, all of it. They are the biggest referrers. And meanwhile, they've watched the whole thing kind of go from day to night. And it's like,
But I think that speaks to exactly what we were saying. It's that people by people, like
yeah,
they're okay with the lack of perfection because they have a level of trust and respect in the people driving the
Integrity,
ship.
transparent.
So yeah, like for you, when
consistency.
someone comes on, like it's not so much like what job is she going to get me into, what, you know, it's more about like they trust
Relationship.
you
Yeah, it's a relationship.
and that you're
100%.
going to do what's right for them, and that may take a couple little twists and turns or whatever the case may be. Same with you. Like none of us are going to be able to guarantee an outcome 100%. But what we can all promise is that we're going to do every single thing within the fiber of our being to deliver and support you 100% and do our absolute best. And if something goes awry, we're going to fix that, or we're going to find a way. So I think it's a matter of people buying people. Nobody's doing anything revolutionary that somebody else isn't
Right.
doing. They're signing up with you. They're signing up with you. They're signing up with us because of who they feel comfortable with. That is going to really be able to just support them the way they need.
That's why I keep sending everybody to you guys. What are you doing? I'm like, go to this info session. Like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. Just go. Just go to it. It's cool. You're going to love it. It's really been awesome.
You know my favorite response is to anything we do? But no one else does it this way. Like insinuating that we shouldn't either. And I think that every time I get that, I'm like, yes,
Yes, that's
thank you.
good.
That's exactly how we want to do it.
Yeah, we
Not
keep
like
hearing
everyone
that
else.
too
Yeah.
from so many people that we're meeting, they're like, no one else is doing it the way you guys are doing it. And I'm like, cool. That's
Yeah.
great.
Thanks for the compliment.
We
Yes.
get that.
we get that all the time. In fact, we have what is this? Like
Yeah.
nobody is doing this. That was tough for us. Like we didn't have like a example to look to. So like for you, Lauren, I commend you for shaking it up, because it could have been very easy for you to build the prototype law firm. There's no shortage of examples
Yeah.
for you to look to see what's the formula, how to do it, what's the product. Like it's kind of straightforward. But for us, it's like, what the hell is a thought leadership platform? How should you structure it? Like what makes the most sense? What does it need? You know, what kind of sponsors does something like that need? Should there be sponsors? You know, everything about it was a question
Why
mark.
would someone want to do this with
Yeah.
us? Why would they? No, but that's a big part of what guides us is like, what do we have to offer? Like, how do we keep that? You know,
It's incredible. And then just like, I guess on a note of people and the importance of people skills, it serves you not just for being able to penetrate the right networks, make the right friends, connect with the right leads, but if you have those interpersonal skills and that ability to connect with others, you can find community while you do this. And everybody says, and we all know how isolating entrepreneurship can be, which isn't it so ironic then that all the thought leaders who came to us came for community? And most of them are solopreneurs or they have small teams. Bianca, how many people are on your team?
5.5.
5.5. So small, 5.5. Oh my God.
I don't want to ask you who the half is, but that's not going to be.
Part-time.
Oh my God, that's funny. But like everybody came for the community, for the camaraderie, for the support of trying to figure out how to do thought leadership, how to do social media, how to do content marketing, you know, how to do business in this new hybrid world, and to support each other through it. And I think we got so much more out of it. But if you're very task oriented, if it's hard for you to connect with people, you're also going to miss out on that support that you can get. You know?
I think it was also what I love is that I think that what's really special and unique about what we've created with all of us is that we've made it really okay to talk about what we're struggling with in our business. Whereas when I first started, especially in financial services, like you weren't going to tell someone you were having a hard time finding clients, because then what does that mean about you? You must suck at your job. Well, how am I going to bring on new clients or get referrals if I somewhat acknowledge that I'm struggling in my business? And I think what's really awesome about the community that we've all created is we talk very openly about where we're struggling, and somebody has either experienced it or is going through it as well. And it gives us all that space to be able to talk that through and share and support each other. And it's amazing. I mean, when Christine stepped away from her job to start her own thing, the one big takeaway that night was she was like, it's exactly what I needed because everyone rallied around her. It's like, I know what you're going through. I know how scary it is. I got you. Like we've all been there, you know, where we're stuck in certain phases. And I think creating a space like that in a place where social media makes it look like everyone's got their shit together all the time. Woke up at 5, went to the gym, fed my kids everything organic and made it from scratch. And I worked out and I looked like one of Bianca's clients. And then, you know, and then I woke up the next day and did it all over again. And my business is thriving. It's a load of shit. And it is. And that's what we created where it's like, no, it's okay. Like we had a very real conversation this morning, like about burnout and hitting a wall and all of those things and making it okay to talk about that. And letting us all feel comfortable to know, like, it's not a reflection of how good you are at your job or what you're doing in your business. It's just real. It's just a part of it. And how can we help each other get through the phase? Because it's a phase. It's going to pass. And then all of a sudden you feel like a rock star. And then you feel like crap again.
I spent years feeling like I could not be myself in my career. Like I had to have Lauren on the side and then career Lauren, and they could not meet because it wouldn't work. And it was exhausting. So exhausting. And I feel like now that I'm just being myself in my career, I'm enjoying it more. Like the career itself is reinvigorated and it's actually bringing me business.
That's amazing. Because people want to be with you.
Show up in a gray suit every day and pretend that I'm boring.
And pretend that I'm boring because you're very not boring. So let's go around the room. If you had to say the one tool, what's the one tool that someone listening thinking about starting their business? What's the one tool they need?
Me first?
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's really the connectivity. I think that you need to be able to identify like having the right relationships and aligning with the right people. And that doesn't mean that they're going to quote unquote refer you business, but finding people that can help you see clearly like where you're going and kind of like that's what it's been like for me. Like being able to look at people like a puzzle and understand how they all fit together and how this can all help me. I'm not always clear on why or what, but I know that the relationships that I've made have been the one thing that is that I can take everywhere I go. Whatever job I do, whatever business I start, at the core of it is going to be the ability to make connections and for myself and for other people around me.
And even if you don't have a big network, you know someone, you have family, you have friends, you know, that might be your first breadcrumb. So it's about knowing where you want to go, who you want to be with, and then starting to ask for those introductions and building the network. You know, a lot of people think they have to have the network already and then go start the business. You can build the network.
I've built it.
Yeah.
I didn't have a network. I wasn't from South Florida when I started in business. I didn't have my college friends or my family. I had nobody. And so I just started creating that.
And now you're an influencer. Who knew? Bianca, what would you say?
So I think a lot of that, but then also I'm going to tag on. I think having your support system in place. I'm same. I think when I started my agency, I didn't feel comfortable going to my former agency's clients and pitching them to build my business. I think that's just not the right way to go about it. So my toolbox was really from the beginning. Okay, I need a logo. I need branding. I have a girlfriend that does that. I need this back end build for my company. These are the people I'm going to use. So, and then also I want to mention real quick, I think it's also having the support system when things don't go right. And I think that's where we get hung up as parents, as partners, whatever. If you need, something falls through with daycare or childcare, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, how am I going to work today? 12 hours, which we did a lot at the beginning, with a baby at home. So it's like having that support system when things don't go right. What do you do now? And I tell this to my actors all the time. You don't want to find somebody to tape with you when you need them today. You already want to have them in your pocket 30 days ago so that you have 5 people you can call on. Don't start shopping the day that you need them.
Right.
Like, make sure that you do this in advance. So that's kind of how I feel like that should
Build
be
up
your
a little
toolbox. Whether it's your
reserve.
accountant, like whatever it is, like you need to have those people that you have reached out to before you go into business. Don't find them
As you go.
as you need to process payments. Don't find them that.
Right. What would you say?
I mean, all of that, and then I think for me, when I started the business, and then when my partner shortly joined me thereafter, my whole thing was I don't want to be just a harried solopreneur like going crazy. I want to make sure we have processes in place. Let's do that from day one. And obviously, we've built it and we've evolved it, and we're figuring out who does what. But that's our goal, is that we have a business, not just this law firm that we're running ourselves every single day, a business that can operate even if we're not there. That really is one of my biggest goals. So we've put a lot of effort and energy invested in a business coach, and we have lock-ins just like you guys have. Like, what is this going to look like? Here's our Google Doc. Here's all the links. And just making sure that if one of us is sick or we want to travel or whatever, we already know who's doing what, and it's all written down. That's been huge for us. We spend a lot of time on it.
I think those are all really good things.
I'll say one more. I think, because you've touched on how much it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't. So I think having a passion and a true unwavering belief in what you're doing.
Why are you stealing my answer? I
did.
saved it. I had a
I'm
backup.
sorry.
And then, of course, you have to go do two and then take my best one. But yeah, go for it, Rome.
No, I laid it up. There you have it. That's what I do. Field of Dreams. I bring it, I develop, I make sure they come, you build it. So build on that.
No, but I was going to say that you have to be so passionate, I think, about what it is you want to create and build and do. It's the only thing that's going to keep you disciplined. It's the only thing that's going to keep you going when it doesn't work and you have to pivot and you have to be flexible. Passion is going to keep you flexible. It's going to give you the motivation to try again, to pivot. You have to be. And I think for me, I was just so unfulfilled, and I just was so passionate about this that there were not very many walls we hit where I was ready to throw in the towel. I mean, it took probably 2 years before I hit my first wall of like, whoa, this is very hard. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And then I remembered all the other walls that I hit, and I just stepped right over. And I said, okay, I'll figure out a way to build a ladder and climb over this one. And we did. And, you know,
And it's you guys.
it is. It really
It's
is.
it's a meeting or an info session, and that's when you and I, even like on our worst day, and we tap back into that, and we're like, okay, yeah, this is why, because we feel so. It's so rewarding. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, like
It keeps us going.
too many people start a business, I think, for the wrong reasons. They just don't like their boss, or they don't want to deal with the lack of control, or they think they want their time back. And I get clients and people like that I work with all the time. A lot of them are in law. There's a lot of women in law that are leaving, starting their own firms, not because they had a dream, but because they're exhausted and they're trying to get a wrangle on their life. You know, they want to be with their kids, and then they start that business, and then they realize, oh, I just traded problems, you know, and I don't know what this is, and I don't know that I want to be having all this pressure on me all the time. And so, yeah, I think passion is so important because it just keeps you going through all the pivots.
I think it's a little misleading to suggest that entrepreneurship is somehow going to give you all this time back. I think it's important to recognize that, like anything else, there's pros and cons. And coming from a family of entrepreneurs, my parents were business partners together. And my mom used to always say the difference is, she's like, when you're an entrepreneur, you're working 24/7. It's yours. Whether you're actively working or just thinking about working or thinking about whatever's going on with work. And I think I've never worked harder as an entrepreneur than I do for my other job. Like that, to me, I just think it's misleading. I think that you own your time in a different way, but to think that you're going to get all this extra time because of it, not if you really want it to succeed and work.
That's so true.
I work on every vacation. I've never been off unless I was at Burning Man and there was no Wi-Fi. That's the only time. And then I had to make 100 phone calls before to make sure that they knew I would really just not have Wi-Fi.
Oh my
There was
gosh.
no way to get me. But
Wow.
you spend your time differently still
Yeah.
while you're working, because you can maybe do it from somewhere else.
Yeah, like I remember, and this is obviously before we had all of the electronics and things that we have today, but yeah, my mom was at everything. She was, my parents both. We volleyball practice, gymnastics, dance, whatever. But I also remember stumbling into her room at like 9:30 when I was already supposed to be in bed, and she was working in bed. going through documents and doing spreadsheets and whatever it was. Like, it was just about, it gave her the ability to be present with us in a way that was important to our family, but it didn't give her all this free time. It just meant she had control over how the time was going to be divided up.
It's so true. I couldn't agree more with that statement. Well, this was a good conversation. And I hope that if somebody out there is listening and on the fence about, do I take the leap? Do I not take the leap? I'm not ready yet. I need to do this first. I need to do that first. I think you have a lot more tools in your toolbox than you think. We all certainly had a lot of tools that we had and that gave us the confidence to take the leap. And I hope that this was helpful. And how do I wrap this up? Like, how do I close this out? I could just end it. Okay.
He's like,
so
"Just
see,
stop
this is
talking."
my first podcast and I don't even know how to wrap this up, but you got the tools. Go out there and use them. Make it happen. They may not look like what you thought they would, but you got them.
And you have us.
And you have the Daily Drip.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Her Pursuit. You can catch a new episode every other Wednesday. Please don't forget to subscribe or follow so that you don't miss out on any of the good stuff.
We love bringing you free content and value to help inspire and motivate you. So if you enjoyed this episode, throw us a thumbs up, leave us a rating, a review, and send this to a friend who you think might enjoy it. Your support is so important to us, and we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. Thanks for listening, and talk to you in 2 weeks.